Stoic Philosophy Series Part 18. Who was Panecius of Rhodes? Panecius of Rhodes was an ancient Greek Stoic philosopher who lived from about 200 to 130 BC. He was born in Rhodes, but his family was originally from the coast of Asia Minor, near the city of Magnesia. And he studied in Athens under the famous Stoics, Diogenes of Babylon and Antipater of Tarsus. Later in life, he traveled around the Mediterranean, even going to Rome, where he won many followers, including the great Roman philosopher Cicero. In fact, it was Panecius who first introduced Cicero to Stoicism. So we have much more to discuss. But before we do that, if you haven't already done so, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe. As I said, Panecius studied in Athens with two famous Stoics, Diogenes of Babylon and Antipater of Tarsus. His teachers had a major influence on him and his philosophy. Diogenes taught him how to live a life according to nature and to be indifferent to external things. And Antipater taught him how to use reason and logic to understand the world and to live a good life. Panecius absorbed their teachings and developed his own system of Stoic philosophy, which was a combination of their ideas and his own experiences. He wrote many books on various topics in Stoic philosophy, but unfortunately none of them have survived to the present day. However, we know what he wrote about from other sources such as Cicero's letters and philosophical works. One of the main topics that Panecius wrote about was happiness. He believed that happiness was the ultimate goal of human life and that it could be achieved by following the Stoic path. According to Stoicism, happiness is not something that depends on external circumstances or things, but rather it is something that depends on our own thoughts and actions. We can be happy or unhappy depending on how we interpret and respond to events that happen to us. For example, if you lose your job, you can either be happy or unhappy depending on how you interpret that event. You can choose to see it as a blessing in disguise that allows you to find a better job, or you can choose to see it as a curse that ruins your life. Similarly, if you win the lottery, you can either be happy or unhappy depending on how you interpret that event. You can choose to see it as a gift from God that allows you to help others, or you can choose to see it as a burden that makes you greedy and selfish. The Stoics believe that we should strive to be happy in all circumstances because happiness is the ultimate good. Another topic that Panecius wrote about was virtue. He believed that virtue is the highest good and that it is the only thing that we should pursue for its own sake. According to Stoicism, virtue is wisdom, courage, moderation, and justice. These are the four cardinal virtues that we should cultivate in ourselves. Wisdom is the ability to understand and live according to nature. Courage is the ability to face danger and pain without fear. Moderation is the ability to control our desires and passions. And justice is the ability to treat others fairly and equally. The Stoics believe that we should pursue virtue because it is the ultimate good and that it is the only thing that we should pursue for its own sake. We should not pursue wealth, fame, or power because these things are not good in themselves. They are only good if they enable us to live a virtuous life. A third topic that Panecius wrote about was nature. He believed that we should live a life according to nature because nature is the source of all wisdom, all goodness, and all beauty. According to Stoicism, nature is the rational principle that governs the universe. It is the logos that makes everything work in harmony. We should live a life according to nature by following our reason and by living in harmony with the universe. We should not try to change nature or to force things to happen. We should accept what happens and make the best of it. Nature is the source of all wisdom, all goodness, and all beauty. We should learn from nature and imitate it. Nature is always wise, good, and beautiful. We should strive to be wise, good, and beautiful ourselves. Nature is the source of our happiness. We should follow nature to achieve happiness. Nature is the source of our strength. We should follow nature to become strong and resilient. Nature is the source of our freedom. We should follow nature to become free from fear and worry. A fourth topic that Panecius wrote about was fate. He believed that we should accept our fate because it is the will of God. According to Stoicism, fate is the rational principle that governs the universe. It is the logos that determines what happens to us. We should accept our fate and submit ourselves to God. We should not resist fate or try to change it. Fate is the source of wisdom. We should learn from fate and obey it. Fate is the source of virtue. We should follow fate to become virtuous and wise. Fate is the source of happiness. We should accept fate to achieve happiness. Fate is the source of our duty. We should fulfill our duty without complaining or boasting. Now let's discuss how Panecius influenced Cicero. As I mentioned earlier, Panecius was one of the first people to introduce Stoicism to Rome, and he had a profound impact on Cicero. Cicero was a Roman statesman, orator and philosopher who was born in 106 BC and died in 43 BC. He was one of the greatest Roman orators and one of the most influential Roman philosophers. Cicero was very interested in Greek philosophy, and he studied the works of Plato, Aristotle, and the Stoics. He was particularly impressed by Stoic philosophy, and he adopted many of its ideas into his own system of philosophy, which he called New Stoicism. Cicero's New Stoicism was a combination of Stoic ideas and Roman customs and values. He adapted Stoic ideas to fit the Roman context and made them more accessible to the Romans. He also added some of his own ideas to Stoicism and developed it in new directions. One of the ways in which Cicero's New Stoicism differed from traditional Stoicism was in its attitude towards the emotions. Traditional Stoicism taught that emotions should be avoided or at least controlled and suppressed. But Cicero thought that emotions were natural and necessary for human beings. He believed that we should not try to avoid or suppress our emotions, but rather we should cultivate good emotions such as love, friendship, and piety, and avoid bad emotions such as anger, hatred, and envy. Another way in which Cicero's New Stoicism differed from traditional Stoicism was in its attitude towards the law. Traditional Stoicism taught that the law was divine and immutable. But Cicero thought that the law was human and changeable. He believed that we should obey the law, but we should also be willing to change it if it is unjust or outdated. This was quite revolutionary for the time period because most Romans believed that the law was sacred and could not be changed. Cicero was greatly influenced by Panecius because Panecius was one of the first people to introduce Stoicism to Rome. And because Panecius was a very prolific writer who wrote on many topics in Stoic philosophy. In fact, Cicero's first philosophical teacher was a Stoic named Balbus, who was probably a pupil of Panecius. And Cicero later studied with Panecius himself when he visited Athens. Cicero was very impressed by Panecius, and he considered him to be one of the greatest philosophers of his time. Cicero admired Panecius' wisdom, his ability to explain complex topics in simple terms, and his practical approach to philosophy. Panecius did not just theorize about abstract ideas. He also applied them to real-life situations and helped his students to solve their problems. Furthermore, Panecius had a great influence on Cicero's style of writing. Panecius was a master of prose, and his writings were elegant and concise. He taught Cicero how to write in a clear and persuasive style, which helped Cicero to become one of the greatest Roman orators. Finally, Panecius also influenced Cicero's political career. Panecius was a supporter of the Stoic ideal of the wise ruler, and he believed that Cicero could be that kind of ruler. Panecius encouraged Cicero to enter politics and to use his talents to serve the state. And Cicero followed Panecius' advice and became one of the most successful Roman statesmen. In conclusion, Panecius was an important figure in the history of Stoic philosophy. He was one of the first people to introduce Stoicism to Rome, and he had a profound impact on Cicero, who was one of the greatest Roman philosophers and statesmen. Panecius was a brilliant teacher and writer who influenced Cicero's thought, style, and career. He was a pioneer who helped to spread Stoicism throughout the Mediterranean world, and he left a lasting legacy on Western civilization. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our future episodes. And remember, you can support us directly through the links in the description below. Thank you for watching. Until next time.